Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening to everyone, wherever you are, and whichever condition of lockdown you're in owing to the current virus. I'm Chris Parry. I'm a strategic forecaster, an academic, and I deal normally with the future of all aspects of human activity. I'm joined today by my good friend Alex Petronenko. He's Creatio's product evangelist, bless him. And he deals with business and product development, automation, and customer relation technologies. And today we're going to talk about what's the right thing to do. Do we invest in innovation now, or do we preserve our resources, both our human and our material resources, until things get back to what we think is going to be the new normal? And we've already invited you to vote on that, what you think. And those of you who haven't, please take the opportunity to vote now so we get a good impression of what people think at the start of this broadcast. And what we're going to do is have another vote at the end and see whether what we've said in the meantime actually changes your mind about what we should be doing as the world emerges from this virus. Today we're joined by two eminent guests. The first is Avi Cohen. He used to be the Chief Investment Officer of the Rappaport family office, and he was overseeing $1 billion in assets. And I bet he's really quite fortunate in thinking he's not having to do that today in the current environment. Right now, he's the Chief Financial Officer of Cabinets to Go. And when I first saw it, I thought this is either about redundant computer hardware or it's regime ministers departing after a coup or an election. But in fact, what they are, they're the largest specialty home improvement retailer in the United States, and they sell kitchen cabinets, countertops, flooring, and accessories, which makes him incredibly popular, I think, with various desperate housewives. But they're heading for a public listing in 2 to 3 years' time. They've got over 75 retail locations, and they reckon they're going to deliver $210 million worth of revenue in 2020. They've got 450 employees and over 1 million square feet of warehouse distribution facilities. He's also the managing director of F9 Investments, a family-based private equity firm with multiple portfolio companies in retail, real estate, clean energy, recycling, and technology. And so we're really glad that he's actually spared the time today to come and talk with us. Also here is Thomas Stewart. He's the integrator and director of operations at Solutions Matrix. It's a CRM partner that specializes in guiding companies through strategic customer experience, digital transformation. And since 2009, Solutions Matrix has implemented over 300 CRM projects and thinks it's going to have triple-digit growth for the second year running. And so he's got a passion for all business solutions, CRM and customer experience innovation, ERP and organizational change management. I've got a lot of passions. I do like what he's involved in, but my passions, shall we say, are a bit more exotic. But he has also a lot of experience in delivering large-scale IT transformation programs across all sectors and industries. So what we're going to discuss today, as I said, is we're going to talk about whether we should be investing now or really hoarding our resources, just like banks do, against a better day dawning in future. So Avi, let me start with you, if I may. Can I ask what your priorities are for investment right now in short and medium term? And how much is that affected by the fact you're going for a public listing in 2 to 3 years' time?
Sure. Right now, everything in the world is on hold. The main priority for us is keep operations running as quickly as smoothly as possible, keep our employees safe and productive, keep our customers as happy and as satisfied as they could be. So in my multiple roles, multiple hats that I wear within Cabinets to Go as a large retailer, those are the points of focus. Those points of focus are really in conjunction with asset utilization, in-store utilization, and employee utilization, in combination with all of that. And so any new investment is on hold, as you could imagine. Cash on hand is limited to only essential activities and or to facilitate any ad hoc activities that we need to do to promote every dollar of sales that we could possibly generate in this restricted environment.
So are you able to access any government or state funds in order to keep the business floating at a reasonable level, or is it all down to your own resources at the moment?
So we were able to access the PPP loan program. We were able to do that fairly quickly. We received our funds 2 weeks ago almost, so fairly quickly. We were fortunately large enough that our banking partners were able to facilitate our needs first, but small enough to still fit within the criteria of the program. And so we were in a unique sweet spot to get the additional lines extended to us.
Thank you. Thomas, is that your experience as you've seen it?
Absolutely. I believe since the beginning of the COVID crisis, everything was put on hold for our clients as well as ourselves, more on a reactionary basis. How to adjust to the unknown. Of course, cash flow is the number one concern at first. To maintain our employee base, to maintain solvency. But I would say after the first 2 weeks, I don't want to say reality resumed. The fact is, the world continues to turn around upon its axis. There are, essential services that were maintained, and luckily, as a business ourselves, we're quite minimally impacted. So I would like to say that we're in one of the few companies to say we're happily still very busy and continue to grow. But I definitely agree with that. In that, maintaining that cash flow, future investments is still a concern, but everything is to be viewed strategically. My understanding is, as long as you use sound fiscal policy, don't put all your eggs in one basket. There's definitely room to invest, and I'll discuss my thoughts on that. But of course, getting access to funding, what the governments have provided, be it the Canada or the US or abroad, there are a number of options available to businesses in order to secure additional funding. I think that should be looked at regardless of whether you're investing or not, or just to keep your lights on. Exhaust all options to ensure that you do have something to fall back on should things take a turn for the worse. But I do believe that there's something to come out of here. I'll speak to my points a little later, but I'm glad to be.
We'll go into that now, because what we're going to do is ask each of our guests to actually give us a 2-minute pitch on what they think is most important at the moment. And Thomas, if we can start with you, you're champing at the bit, I know. So let's go ahead.
Absolutely. There's a number of thoughts. I think first and foremost, we have to think about not just the business, but also the people behind the business. Not to forget our employee bases. So I don't want to say I'm a chief people officer, but I believe in my team, and I think every leader here has a great team behind them. I think the biggest thing is to make sure your employees are still motivated, that they feel secure, that their employment is covered. I know that's not always the case, but when and where possible, try to polarize your teams, engage them in your corporate strategy, discuss where we are, share the realities, keep them informed, and let them know that, where are we trying to take the future of our business. I don't think anyone in here is in the business of shutting doors. So to keep your team on board, keep them motivated, I think is one of the driving factors in order to achieve any of your strategic investments that you want to do, whether it's systems, purchases, you need a team behind you. So first and foremost, make sure your employee base is safe, secure, well-maintained, up to date, communicated with regularly, celebrate every day, celebrate the wins, and understand your losses, because business does continue. This crisis it is a unique situation, but it doesn't mean that business doesn't stop day to day. So keep some form of normalcy in your day to day with your teams. It helps, and that's my perspective. Secondly, I think one of the important things is looking at efficiencies. Investing in technology is first and foremost in order to be best prepared to serve your clients, your needs, how to operate your business. Efficiency, I think right now is the name of the game. You want to lower your operating costs. You want to look at how to best squeeze every dollar, how to stretch every penny as far as you can, how to lower the total cost of ownership of your existing applications and your existing IT ecosystems, how to better leverage specific systems such as CX platforms, business process automation. The name of the game is also engaging with your customer base. And that's what I think Creatio does very well. How to manage your customer relations, understand your customers. Today, you're not seeing them face to face. You're going to be engaging with them remotely. So using the right systems to track and understand your sales cycle, your customer relationships, I think that's where we're going to be able to invest now in order to best be suited to either attack the slope and the backlog that we'll all get when the market turns around, or to take on your competition. There is a harsh reality out there. Not everyone will survive. I think it's very real. A lot of companies, some of them, were very safe and secure in their investments, had the cash and the pillow, or the war chest, as we call it sometimes, to brave the storm that we're living today. But as the market trickles back on to normalcy, we're going to have to be prepared to execute. And if you're not prepared to execute and you cannot turn the lights on or keep the lights on, this conversation is almost not for you. It's to say, okay, if you are ready to resume business, how are we going to do so? And how are you going to keep your fair share of the market? And if you want to be aggressive, how can you take over those spots that are now open for you to step in? I don't want to be mean, but now is the time to attack. When people are suffering, when the enemy is down, you go for the throat. And I'm going to leave it at that.
Well, thank you very much indeed there, Thomas. I think you're echoing something I've been thinking for some time now, is that the C-suite needs a chief morale officer in the present circumstances. I'm not sure many of your employees would really hear the sentence "preparing to execute" be something they'd be happy about, but there we go. So Avi, your thoughts as we start this.
So let me share some statistics with everyone that reflect both cabinets to go. But it's interesting that a lot of the businesses in our portfolio companies and in the CEOs and CFOs that I speak with, we seem to be all falling in the same rough range. So business today is about 2/3 of what was pre-COVID for us. I think some retailers are probably worse off, but the 15 or 20 different businesses that either I'm intimately involved with or have connected with the CFOs, that seems to be about where everybody's falling in terms of business levels. That said, costs for generating that business are significantly higher, and I'll share a couple of those with you. Transportation costs for us on average are about 25% higher the last 2-3 weeks than they are ordinarily. Supply chain, our business is very reliant on manufacturing in Asia, shipped over to our distribution center where we disassemble the boxes, reassemble them, deliver them to the stores, and then on to customers. Those are delayed at this point. Keep in mind that Asia was affected by this crisis earlier than us by about 5 weeks so far. They're actually starting to emerge from the crisis, so we're hoping that 5 weeks will remain roughly the supply chain delay. And so what you're seeing is every dollar spent on advertising, every dollar spent on store operations, every dollar spent on typical business activities, and the expectations of getting $2 back in doing that activity is coming in about 1/3 less than we expected, which makes everything a lot more expensive for us. Obviously, we can't raise pricing in this environment. You can't change the model for a 1 month or a 4-month disruption significantly. You can't change rents. You can't change the number of stores you have. And so what we're seeing is operations are more expensive. The cost of every dollar of revenue is more expensive. And therefore, the need for a big cash pile is that much more important. And the choices that we are making and constantly making every day, how to allocate the dollars that we currently have and that we have on hand, that we have in reserve, is that much more important. And it makes a very big difference whether this is a 1-month crisis or a 4-month crisis, because I think 4, 5, 6 months, that's going to change the landscape significantly across the world. And so while innovation is a constant thing, innovation is also a very expensive thing. When you launch a new product, when you launch a new campaign, when you launch targeting new customers, that costs you advertising dollars, that costs you effort and time, and all of that is much more expensive today than it was 4 weeks ago. And so the time to innovate is probably over the next 1 to 2 years, the time right now is to conserve as much cash as you can so you can survive and live.
Yeah, I just wanted to, bring a little bit more of a discussion here, because I think that you're raising very interesting points. But a few of those that I really wanted to object is really, obviously, you're looking at this current world from the perspective of cabinets, right? You're looking at the expense of the company, you're looking at those problems that you're facing right now. But if we were to distance ourselves from your specific organization and look at just the broader view, do you really believe that all of the organizations should be in this preservation mode? Or do you also agree that those companies that have the ability to jump ahead of the game through innovation and through investment into those innovations to actually take the leadership positions should actually do that, because they see that the opportunity, or they at least think that they see it?
Sure. So actually, this is actually a general question and a general response, right? It's not really specific to cabinets. Every business has operating expenses. Every business's operating expenses are now that much more expensive, whether it's specifically shipping or it's hosting or it's employees, right? An employee today in every business is far less productive today than he was 3 weeks ago or 6 weeks ago. So that's an expensive proposition to target a dollar worth of revenues, whether, today versus a month ago, let's say. So that's what we're talking about. I think every business is looking at their own reserves, and whether they have a lot of reserves or a few reserves, they're trying to figure out how long they could survive. And all of that thought of innovation, it's going to be centered around really short-term kind of ideas. What can I do right this second, push out right this second, implement right this second effectively, right? Because I'll give you a great example. No one is putting together a new ERP implementation this week, right? Because that's a year process with a lot of time, effort, and while certainly you're going to be more effective and more efficient at the end of that process, that's not for the next month, 2 months, 3 months. That's something exiting this, if you survive, said, you know what, my experience the last 2 months was horrible because I didn't know what my inventory was, because I didn't know what my CRM, and I didn't have a good way of reaching out to all my clients. I really need to update and revamp my entire CRM product. So from that perspective, yes, this is the time to sort of jot down all of the things, all of your shortcomings, and address them over 3 years, not to make any big changes now, because those changes are just not effective.
I really want to hear your perspective on this, but before we jump into, just a quick announcement for our audience. Please refresh your screens to enable the chats. Maybe somebody has some video delays, and definitely send your questions, send your comments in the chat area, where we have a very heated discussion already. But Tom, really, what do you think of this? What do you think in regards of the company that will invest now will have the chance to jump ahead of the game? And can you actually agree with the fact that some of the organizations are now less productive? Because we internally had a very heated discussion yesterday, and this is definitely a question.
I definitely have my thoughts. I agree with regards to some industries. I think to make a blanket statement to say all businesses are affected is, I think slightly out of proportion. When it comes to services, the financial services industry, technology industry, I've actually seen an increase of productivity across all of my employees of over 10%. Working remotely, no travel, completely IT enabled, it's great. Our bottom line has actually increased. Our profit margins have increased, and we're passing along those savings as we can to negotiate new deals and close new business. But I think to state that, everyone now should hold on for a year, 2 years, 3 years, my concern is it's going to be too late. And to spend a few dollars now into a transformation project so that you are able to, one, service your customers better now, or service your customers better today and tomorrow, you'll keep your customers, you'll sell more, and therefore increase your productivity and your profit margins. You have resources in companies that are sitting there, I don't want to say twiddling their thumbs, but how often have businesses run their operations, management, and subject matter experts at 100%? We all know that running a business, every employee is over-allocated, way too busy to even accomplish a transformation project. And when you have a meeting with a client, you say, hey, we're going to need 6 people from your team for 6 weeks. Everyone kind of rolls their eyes and freaks out and says, oh, another job on top of my other 2 jobs. Great. Now we're saying, okay, maybe you have a few cycles. Maybe you're not 100% busy. Great. Now's the time to double down. Use your staff. Use that body of knowledge to further your business. Invest now. And we have a multitude of financing terms, as the US has their different investment opportunities. Canada has very interesting financing terms in order to, support business transformation at very low interest rates. And we've even lowered our rates to have zero cost financing. So we're trying to provide that flexibility to our, prospective customers and say, invest now while you have the bandwidth to accomplish significant business transformation, so that in 3, 6, 9 months, you are already a sharper, leaner, better company. And that's our view on it. And I think keeping the team busy is part of it.
Yeah, I mean, we all remember what happened to Blockbuster. That would definitely just, didn't transform, did not innovate, and they were once ahead of the game. Now they're they're forgotten, right? And even through our, conversations with
adapt or die.
Yeah. So even through our conversations with analysts, we actually see, and everybody states that now is the time where organizations actually are forced to rethink all of their operational processes, all of their processes, right? Because they're either are broken or they're not working in this new environment. So through rethinking and through rediscover those processes, actually very often comes the innovation part, right? Where you actually need to start from scratch, start something new, or at least try to adapt to this, to bring something new to your employees, to your customers as a process, right?
So this sounds to me like you guys want to all get together and redesign the house while it's still on fire to give you better access to the burning building. So my thought is, the house is on fire. The first thing you need to focus on is putting out the flames. True, when you rebuild the house over the next 2 or 3 years, you're going to make some improvements. You've learned some lessons. Hopefully you've survived and the house could be renovated or repaired. But really, sort of the meat of the innovation, the needs for innovation are going to be discovered over the next month or 2, right? You're going to find out that your way of accessing customers, your way of reaching and meeting the needs of your customers were lacking in some way. And then you're going to sit down in 2 or 3 months when you stop putting out these little fires, and you're going to say, okay, this is what I need to do to redesign so in the future I could do this better. And then over the next year or 2 years, you're going to implement those changes in a thoughtful and well-planned manner, as opposed to what you're doing this week, last week, 2 weeks ago, which is, oh my God, I need video conferencing so I could talk to my client. Oh my God, I need to record some of that for legal purposes. Oh my God, I need a way to have signed documentation for legal contracts that's automated, and I hadn't put that in place before because they used to all come in and we'd meet and sign, shake hands and sign paperwork in person. And that's what you're dealing with now.
And Chris, sorry to hijack the conversation there, but passing it back to you.
Thank you. Guys, what I'd like to ask is how much is innovation now and investment now limited by what your partners and your customers are doing? Because you could get well ahead of the game in terms of technology and find that everybody else, of course, has lagged behind, and you can't really take advantage of some of the technologies that you might have introduced in the meantime. Avi, can we start with you again?
So I don't think any responsible investment organization is going to push their people to make any radical changes today. I don't think any responsible management team is going to push their strained employee base and management teams to make radical changes, again, 3-4 month period. Exiting that, absolutely. And I think that's just both a knee-jerk reaction to let's save every dollar, but also, there is a lot of dollars being spent on sort of emergency actions and emergency patches and solutions and band-aids to help us operate right now. So we need those dollars. We can't split the IT guys and the programmers, the dedicated programmers, to work on sort of longer thought projects. We need them right now to fix the little bits and pieces that are breaking all around us.
Yeah. What about you, Thomas, from your perspective?
I think the 2 or 3 month range is reasonable. What Avi proceeds and projects and saying, okay, today maybe not hold on to your funds, but in 3 months, as we begin to emerge from the fiery house, shall we say, is realistic. I'm not saying dump $1 million today. I think if you were in the sales cycle and understanding your digital transformation and building a digital transformation roadmap yesterday or 6 weeks ago, it's going to take another month or 2 to close. Companies are not releasing 7-figure checks today, but they are still at the discussion table, which means companies are still actively looking at digital transformation. If they don't, they will die. They are hemorrhaging funds and hemorrhaging, productivity in old, obsolete systems. Now, when you look and say, okay, it's going to take 2 months to build a proper SOW, understand your requirements, engage with the customers. So, maybe I'm not saying or advocating for everyone to say, okay, blank check as of tomorrow, but 2 months is the blink of an eye in the business world. It's less than a quarter. So to say within the next quarter, companies are going to be re-engaging in significant business transformation is, I think, stating investing today. Today is within the quarter. I think when we start pushing out beyond the quarter, then yes, maybe then it's people are more risk.
Okay, let me give you a scenario then. Let's just say that things are gradually getting back to normal in a staggered sort of way by the 1st of June now. What one piece of technology would you want to have in place, either of you, in order to take advantage of the upswing that is going to occur straight away, both in order to deal with the backlog, but also to deal with competitors and get ahead of the game? I'll start with you, Thomas.
I'm gonna say it bluntly, and it's almost a free joke. Customer experience, the CRM platforms, engaging with your prospects through marketing automation, through proper customer profiling, understanding their purchasing habits, what are their pain points, how are they engaging with you, how to better service your customers, how to better sell to your customers, because it's all about getting revenue. Regardless of what industry you're in, it's about understanding your customer base and managing it properly.
Because we all know, looking at past pandemics, there's a huge uplift in both Wall Street, in the stock market, and business generation as soon as these restrictions get lifted. So customer experience for you, Avi, what would you put in place?
I 100% agree that will be the full focus, should be the full focus of every company, ourselves included. We want to make sure the leads are in place. We want to make sure advertising is maintained, which is our biggest driver of customer engagement. We want to make sure we're maximizing that and shifting things correctly so that when we do emerge, whether it's May 15th or June 1st, we have the powder to re-engage customers. We have the systems and the leads and the procedures to reach back out quickly and efficiently, so we don't miss anyone and don't leave any potential customers untouched.
Okay, and as we head towards that date, what one thing is keeping you both awake at night at 4 o'clock in the morning? Avi, should we start with you?
Sure. So my biggest concern is sort of, and let's use advertising because it's a big portion of my budget, is that I'm still, advertising is booked 3 months to a year in advance for the most part. Big TV advertising, big promotion campaigns. My concern that's keeping me up at night is split equally between trying to reposition that in a way that's effective and making sure that I have, when we emerge, the people and the employee pool base morale to be able to take advantage of the advertising we're lining up to deliver customers through the doors.
Yeah, Thomas, on your side?
Absolutely. You know what? I second Avi's thoughts on advertising and marketing. I think traditional print marketing and visible marketing on the sides of roadways and print media, it's going to change. I think the exposure is going to drop significantly as we gradually come back to quote unquote normalcy and drive into work every day and look at the broadcast signs on the sides of the highways. But at the same time, I think the more human aspect is I'm worried about my employee base. I'm worried about the fear of people taking public transportation again. I'm worried about how we're going to resume and handle the incumbent waves of infection that we still don't have a grasp on entirely. And I think, the data is still coming out. So my fear is even less on the business side, more on the human aspect and how it will affect adversely our businesses as we are ready to re-engage, and then we're going to get hit with a second doozy. And it's to understand how we're going to mitigate that and gradually adjust.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Just a quick advertisement here now. Could I ask all our visitors kindly just to refresh their pages? We're getting some slight sort of pixelation, so if you could all do that, that would be terrific. So my next question, Thomas, again, I'll start with you while you're still on screen, is do we think we're dealing with intelligent customers when we're deploying technology, both in terms of the people we're selling to, and are we intelligent customers in return when we're buying from technology companies? So how much do we need trusted partnerships in that respect?
I think everyone is an intelligent customer. They all understand their unique use cases. They all have their unique problem statements, and it's a question of understanding how to handle them in the journey and help guide them through the journey of digital transformation. I think everyone wants to become better. Nobody wants to just stay at the status quo. We want to become more efficient. We want to become more profitable. We want to do our job better, and it's to help them through that. And I think having a guided partner is always ideal. We are the CRM partners. We are here to help you through your customer experience journey, building a better customer experience platform for you. That's what we do with Solutions Metrics. That's what Creatio does with a great platform. But at the same time, we also use trusted partners ourselves. We don't, take on different transformation initiatives without engaging the experts. I mean, why struggle twice yourself when you can hire a professional to help you get there faster, easier, and learn more while you're with them?
How do you gain that trust, Thomas? How do you gain that trust? How do I know, as say, just a general guy who wants to spend some money, that I can trust a partner, particularly a technology provider, if I don't know about these things?
And this is where it gets a little touchy. I mean, where we used to be face to face, and now in the days of remote engagement, we don't often have that face to face interaction, gauging physical cues, as you mentioned in our previous discussion, Chris. Just hearing the voice is not always it. You want to see the eyes roll. You want to see switch. You want to see the biting on the lip or the nervous clacking of the pen. Is how to gauge your customers, how to gauge your counterpart on the other side of the table. It's going to become difficult. We're going to have to learn to leverage, our IT tools differently. I don't know yet. I think it's going to become more and more difficult as we progress.
One of the interesting things that I've been seeing recently in customer relations is the extent to which the buyers are actually doing a lot of research in terms of the data exhaust that their sellers and the individual sort of evangelists put out of the back. And so outside of the company, people are researching the people they're dealing with on the internet, and there's a lot to find apparently. Avi, can I ask about your experience here?
Sure. The one thing I would add to this conversation is during the last month and over the next month, we all have a set and a group, both a narrow set and a wider set of partners that we deal with, and we've had a unique opportunity to evaluate how those partners act, what those partners can offer us, and how adaptable they are during times of crisis like we're in right now. And so part of that is how well you're doing now. How well is your ERP partner doing? How well are your programming partners are doing? How well the ad and integration partners are doing? Where their shortcomings are, where they've stepped up and helped you in this time of need, and that will really help a lot in terms of how the next 2 years will look like.
Okay, Avi, staying with you, let's just say you do want to invest, both for now and into the future. What's your best argument for bringing technology on board in today's environment and saying to your bank manager, your investment partner, this is why I need to put money in right now? What's your best argument to go to the bank or the financial institution to say, I need this now, and I want to do it immediately, and I want to do it in the short to medium term as well?
So it's the same discussion that you always have, right? I think if I invest X dollars, I will make X return on those dollars internally. Here's what I think that will enable me to do. Here's why I think it will enable me to do that. It will help me reach more customers, engage customers in a better way, a different way, a more efficient way. It will help me streamline my back office processes. Those haven't changed. Those are the same discussion and measurements that you use for every dollar spent all the time it's that much more important and concentrated, obviously, when the dollars are scarce.
But, I'm the bank manager, Avi, I hear what you say, but it's a very risky time now to lay out cash, for this sort of thing. It's very speculative. What guarantees have I got that I'm going to get a return on this?
That is the classic problem. Investment dries up. That's part of the reason that the government is stepping up with low to no cost loan programs. It's why they're injecting liquidity into the market. They are the lender of last resort, and they're pumped $3 trillion into the economy in the US just to support that.
Alex, do you want to come in on this?
Yeah, I just wanted to maybe reflect on the fears that Avi and Tom kind of expressed, right? Basically, what I feel they both express is the fact that we do have those fears that, either the world now is very different and will never going to be the same in the future, right? So it will be coming back to some sort of a normal, but the normal is going to be different than it is right now. And of course, as far as I understand, as far as I'm concerned, the innovation is also part of, becoming adjusted to that world, right? And this is where for me personally, there's no question whether we should preserve or we should invest in innovation, because we're going to have to innovate. We're going to have to adjust to that new world. But again, another question here is, counter preservation. And Avi, this is probably directed to you. Assuming you would have an option, you were presented an option to invest in software that would reduce your operational costs, would reduce your organization costs by 30–40% guaranteed, would you still be on the side of preservation, or would you change your mind and you would go for the investment in the innovation, understanding that it will drive your costs down and overall?
Okay, so longer term, absolutely, we should all be on the side of innovation all the time. Until you have a clear path of when and what the exit of this crisis looks like, it's going to be tough to focus people on it. And B, it's really the dollars spent right now is unthinkable as an investor. One thing that always annoyed me about public companies is they seem to spend money like every additional dollar coming in from investments is free. They're not. They're hard to get. Private equity dollars are hard to get. Bank dollars are hard to get. It's our responsibility to be very frugal with it when it does come, and always weigh risk versus reward. Yes, innovation is going to be an absolute necessity when you exit out of this, because the world will change, no doubt about it. And whether it's more virtual reality, better online engagement with your customers, whatever it may be, you're going to need to get better at that. No argument there. But you're not even starting that process so you could see an exit.
I mean, Avi, let me ask you a very quick question, and you, Thomas. Would you rather spend money right now on mitigating risks to your business or exploiting opportunities that will come?
I'll take it first. I look at it this way. Will I be there in 6 months? If I put myself in the head of any prospective entrepreneur, do I have the cash flow? Do I have some form of cushion? And this has to be a 6 to 9 month plan. If you're viewing the next 3 months and that is where you're mapping and your planning is stopping, you need to look further. So understanding, okay, 6–9 months, do we have a business plan? If you're saying, Avi, on average, 70% of what it used to be, 2/3 of where we used to be, you're going to have to look at cost cutting. I think that's the number one thing on people's mind is how do I lower my operating costs to remain profitable or remain at least, cash flow positive and solvent. Okay, well, what are the number one reasons? If I don't invest today, I won't be there in 6 or 9 months. And I think that's my way of looking at it. I think if we have to cut costs, what are my options? And oftentimes it's the business systems supporting the company.
Good, Avi?
And the one objection I always have with analysts is they always think that cutting expenses is a switch on the wall, and you just go to it, you hit the switch, and expenses are cut. Advertising expenses are prepaid 6 months, a quarter, a year in advance. Payroll, even if you laid off the entire workforce today, you're probably paying between 2 weeks and 4 weeks worth of severances and obligations. There's no easy way to just flip a switch and realign an entire business, especially when that business is only shut down temporarily, meaning, you're not going to go through the expense of shutting things down and cutting costs on a more permanent basis if they're going to just pick up. Now, the question is, are they going to pick back up in 3 weeks or in 9 weeks or in 3 months? And so that's sort of the game you're playing. You don't want to shut too many things down because it'll cost you that much to get them back up. And that's really the question. And that's where the dollar, that's why you want to hold on to the dollar, because if you're not sure how long it's going to take you to cut expenses, if you're not sure how much dollars you're going to end up with at the end of this, because you're not sure when the end will be. Think about a month ago, we were talking about shutting down for 14 days. 14 days ago, we're talking about shutting down to between mid-May and the end of June. Schools have already canceled the year. If we have a sort of a resurgence of this, maybe we're talking through midsummer, and that really significantly changes the dollars we're talking.
Good. Okay, guys, last question. Okay, because we're going to wrap up soon. Okay, what's the role of thought leadership and storytelling at this stage from your point of view?
I think thought leadership is something I use with all of my team. As we are a services company, we are business transformation consultants. Our job is to provide thought leadership. Every time we're in a meeting with our customers, we're there to ask the questions, poke and prod, and direct the conversations towards business process reengineering. That is our ultimate goal. And when I say thought leadership, positivity is the key right now. In today's day and age, there's a lot of uncertainty. You have to be the knight in shining armor, shall we say. I think right now, to be in front of people and say, okay, everything's going to be fine. Let's look to the future. I know that at the end of the day, we all say, look, we're in the situation we are today. How are we going to address it? But thought leadership must be, let's plan for the future. How can we best adapt? Keep a positive outlook. The world goes on.
Avi, last word from you.
Yeah, and I agree. The job of everyone, whether they're line workers, salespeople, management, investors, partners, is to sort of constantly talk, figure out both the short-term and the long-term challenges, and work together to address them. Some projects will start a little later. Some projects will start right this second because we need them. This world will recover. We will recover very quickly because once we pass a certain point, the very next day, everybody will be eager and ready to get on with their lives. And so I think from a thought process, all of that all these conversations should be constantly happening and should continue. Plans and new plans and on top of plans constantly being adjusted. So I'm in agreement there.
May I have just one parting thought?
Yeah, of course.
I think that the current question that's asked, do we invest now or maintain our resources for a future date? It's relative to what industry you are, how much your company was impacted by the current crisis. I mean, I'm in a lucky position. We were relatively unimpacted. And if anything, we're benefiting with the fact that people are now engaging more and more remotely and need to use CRM platforms and CX platforms more readily. There are other industries, such as the essential services industries. They are running at 150% capacity. They need to find a way to operate better and leaner and more agile. There are other industries that are slightly impacted and, say a 30% impact off the bottom line. And there are others that are at a crawl and a standstill. And I think that this discussion that we've had is, impacts each of those businesses and has questions at each different level. And I think we should take these conversations further in other sessions like this to discuss how the different impacted levels of businesses can react and hopefully adjust.
Thank you very much. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Just to summarize, a lot of you, I think, probably know I used to be in the Navy. And one of the things that we used to really believe was in priority order, what we had to do with our ships in action was firstly to float, then to move, and then to fight. And it had to be in that order because you can't fight if you're not floating and you can't maneuver if you're not moving. So I get the sense that there's a bit of everything here. We're going to have to float and move in the short term. We're going to have to invest in fighting over the longer term. And that actually dovetails very well with strategy, because strategy for any company is about, first of all, survival, and then building sustained success. And you have to invest in not always equal measure, but you have to invest in both if you're going to go forward. And managing those outcomes, the resources you've got, and the ways in which you're going to implement your business is really important. And one of my favorite quotations is from a friend called Paul Greenberg, who I know associates with Creatio. He's written a great book on CRM. And he says, the way you think about your business and how to engage customers at deeper levels means satisfying their self-interest so that their experience is exceptional enough for them to want to continue to do business with you. And I put in brackets, even after COVID-19 coronavirus. Okay, thank you very much to Alex, Avi, and Thomas for their fascinating and original insights. I agree, I think this conversation could have gone on for much longer. I learned a great deal, and I hope that everyone here did as well. Our next event is on the 30th of April, and you'll see some of us again. And we're going to be discussing the benefits and disadvantages of virtual and real existences, whether you're online, for example, as we are now, or you're face-to-face. So in the meantime, please stay safe, and we look forward to seeing you again in future. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I would like to part with the thought that there was 56% of people voted for investing and 44% to preserve for future dates. So I think that we are still very much on the edge. There's a lot of further conversations to be had in these uncertain times, but I like to see optimism. So it's good. It's good news.
Absolutely. We're still standing.
Absolutely.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.